So one night we're out in the middle of the woods in the dark. There's nothing to do. Everyone is bored to death. And next thing you know, the KKK shows up. They're dressed in their white outfits with the hood, and they got the fire going, and they start surrounding.
Peter Sotolongo, thank you so much for coming on the Goldberg Rosen Podcast. It is an absolute pleasure to have you. I've looked up to you for many years. You are an amazing person, but an even better trial lawyer, maritime lawyer, and it's great to have you on. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's an honor to be here. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you guys for having me. It's I look forward to this moment.
You are the American dream. Came here from Cuba. Where's the first place you lived, and what was it like?
Well, first place was Davenport here in the state, close to Kissimmee in Orlando. My mom was picking oranges with the Mexicans because she didn't speak any English, and that's where we settled first, and we shared a room in a house with other people.
Shared shoes with your brothers, right?
Shared shoes with my brother, and my brother actually would wear my shoes too, and they were big on him, so people would make fun of him at school. But he didn't care. It was what it was.
It must have been tough, coming to a foreign land, not speaking the language, watching your mom struggle, you guys struggle. Talk to us about that. What was that experience like?
It was an extraordinary experience because as a 9-year-old, I was 9 when we left Cuba. You never imagine that you're gonna leave your country and your family and your friends and everything you know behind, and then you have to start all over again. As an adult, I guess you can prepare for that, but as a kid, it's hard to prepare for that. Going to a new land, learning a new language, living in a new place, feeling like a stranger. And not being surrounded by your family. I come from a big family. We were 7 brothers and 1 sister. And I just came with my younger brother and my mom and my dad. And so, I left everything that I knew behind and had to start all over, including learning English, which I thought would never happen. It just sounded like Chinese. And I was thinking to myself, I'm never going to learn this language. It was so crazy.
And what I think you told us, one of the first place you landed was Kentucky, right? Was it Kentucky?
Well, we landed. I came in the Mariel Boatlift, and we landed in Key West overnight because we came on a boat, and so they processed us and they brought us here to the Freedom Tower, and we got some clothes there and stuff, and then they flew us up to Arkansas, Fort Chaffee, Arkansas. It was a military base, and they sort of housed us there. And we were there for approximately 2 to 3 months.
Tell us about what happened one night.
So one night we're out in the middle of the woods in the dark. There's nothing to do. Everyone is bored to death. And next thing you know, the KKK shows up. They're dressed in their white outfits with the hood, and they got the fire going, and they start surrounding the camp
and the camp is what, like 100 Cuban refugees or a couple hundred? How many people?
Couple of hundred, yeah.
And they all just came from Cuba with you and the Mariel Boatlift?
Yes, absolutely. So they were being processed here in Miami and shipped over there. So we the Cubans saw the KKK driving around in the little golf carts, and that's what we were used to in Cuba, and the clowns showed up in the circus, riding around in the circus and doing stupid stuff, So the Cubans got excited, and they were like, hey, they brought us clowns, So everybody got ready to have a good time and be entertained.
What's the word for clown?
Payasos. Nos trajeron los payasos, they brought us the clowns. So the army people and the National Guardsmen that spoke Spanish, like the Puerto Ricans and the Dominicans and stuff, they were, they were very scared and concerned. And they were like, no, these are not clowns. They're the KKK. They don't want you in this country, and they're here to kill you. You know, basically. So the Cubans did a double take, and they were like, "What? What was that? What did you say? Kill us? We want to kill them." So they started jumping over the fence and grabbing sticks and chasing the KKK into the woods, and the KKK literally took off their hoods and turned off the fire and literally left the golf carts behind and ran into the woods and disappeared.
What an interesting way to start your time in America, huh?
Yeah, well, in Cuba, I obviously as a kid, and I was only 9, as I said, we didn't know anything about the KKK, and I had never experienced anything like that. Being born in Cuba, I never even experienced racism or anything to that effect, so I had no idea what was going on. But I did sense the danger once they made it clear to us that they were there to harm us, and it turned out okay. I guess that's why they say the crazy Cubans. And then it later turned out, I had a friend studying, psychology, and one day I picked up her book, and I realized that there was a section on the migration of Cubans in the 1980s and mental health. And what they were doing here in Miami, once they would identify someone that had mental health issues, they were keeping them together, congregated. So they were sending them all to Fort Chaffee, Arkansas, along with our family. So I guess they must have thought my dad or my mom was crazy too, but the KKK went to mess around with a bunch of crazy Cubans for real.
So then you eventually ended up in Florida, right? And did your schooling. Tell us about your path to becoming a lawyer.
So, my mom has a 3rd grade education. My dad was a political prisoner in Cuba for 10 years, or a little bit longer than that. He was more educated, but was not a lawyer. And I don't know, one day when we were picking oranges, my mom would always stress that it was important to get an education in America. And, at the time as a kid and being obviously, freaked out by the change and the new environment, I just wanted to be with my mom, and I just wanted to work with her and help her out. So I would tell her, no, I'm going to work with you. I'm going to be here to help you out. But she made it a point that, no, you're going to go get an education, and it's important for you to get an education. So one day, while I was picking oranges, I thought to myself, you know what? Instead of doing hard work like we're doing now, I'm going to let a pen be my tool to work and my tool for the future. And, as a 10-year-old, I decided I'm going to go and I'm going to become a lawyer. I don't know where that came from. It was just God sent, as far as I'm concerned. But since the age of 10, as far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a lawyer. So I grew up in Haines City. Haines City is next to Davenport, and I was there to the 10th grade. And then at the age of 16, I decided to come down to Miami. My father was living here in Miami. Went to Miami High for my last 2 years, and then ended up going up to New York to live with a brother who took me in because I wanted to go to college. It was either going to be college or the military. I just needed a way out, and I needed something better than what I had here in Miami. So my brother, fortunately for me, gave me that opportunity. And I ended up in Astoria, Queens, in New York. And I called Brooklyn Law School. And this is why I like giving back now, and I like to go to schools and speak to the younger generations and students. I picked up the phone and I called Brooklyn Law and I said, hey, I want to go to law school. And the lady said to me, well, you sound a little young. Are you like 18 years old? And I was like, yeah. She's like, did you just graduate from high school? I say, yes. She said, well, you got to go and get yourself a bachelor's degree first. You can't just go to law school like that, So that was news to me. So I was like, so where can I go? And she said, well, what do you like? And, a teacher of mine from high school had mentioned criminal justice. So I said, you know what? I would like to be a criminal defense lawyer. And she said to me, well, why don't you go to John Jay College of Criminal Justice? So I enrolled in John Jay, and that's where, I went to John Jay College.
And at that point, At what point did you work as a bailiff?
So when I came back down to Miami, I graduated from college and I came down to Miami and I ended up, I sent out a bunch of resumes and applied to a bunch of jobs. And, I was having a hard time finding a good job. So I ended up working security since I had a bachelor's degree in criminal justice here at the Port of Miami for Maersk, for a security firm associated with them. And one day I got a call from a judge's chambers, and all I remember is just hearing judge and bailiff and this and that, and I was like, I'll be there. So I went through 2 interviews, and one day I got the call that they wanted to hire me for the position, and I remember clearly looking up to the sky and saying, God, you're incredible and you work in mysterious ways. And I knew at that point that I was going to be able to go to law school. So I ended up going to law school at Nova. They had an evening program. So I worked as a bailiff during the daytime and went to law school at night.
Who was your judge, and what was the most interesting case that you saw take place as a bailiff?
So my judge is Alan Postman, circuit judge here in the Dade County Circuit Courthouse in Miami. And the most interesting case that we had a lot of wonderful, interesting cases, but the one that stands out the most was the Engle case against the tobacco companies when Dr. Engle, he was actually a doctor, sued them, and the case landed in front of my judge. So we always had the courtroom packed with lawyers from all over the country, and it was against 2 lawyers, Stanley Rosenblatt and his wife, I forget her name now, but they were just wonderful lawyers, and it was such a pleasure to watch them take on all these powerful lawyers from across the country.
Tell us about your education in the Yiddish language.
So one day
I want to hear it exactly how it happened.
So one day I'm there in the morning and it's early. I'm getting ready, setting up the courtroom, getting ready to start our hearings, because we would have a bunch of hearings every day. The lawyers would file a bunch of motions, and I'm in the jury room doing something. I think getting water to put on the tables and stuff like that. And Stanley Rosenblatt comes into the jury room and closes the door behind me, and he says to me, "What's wrong with Judge Postman? Does he think I'm a schmuck?" And I was like, I didn't even know what he was talking about. I was like, I don't know. I don't know what you mean, But later on, I asked around and I found out what he actually meant. And, I guess he didn't take lightly the rulings, that the judge was handling down or on the
case. He bet it all. Stanley Rosenblatt bet it all on that Engle case.
Yes, he did. My understanding is he closed his office and all they worked on was that particular case. And I don't know how else he could have done it. I mean, these guys, Stanley and his wife, I mean, they took on an army of lawyers from all over the country, and some of the best lawyers that the defense could hire and have them defend R.J. Reynolds.
We sat down, Brett and I sat down with Stanley and talked to him about that case. He shared a lot of information. One of the things I loved that he told me was, these people, they have all the fancy lawyers in the world, but they can never prepare for me. I hit them with something different every time. And I think when you, me, and Brett try cases together, that's our mentality. They can read our closing arguments, they can ask around and see it, but we're going to hit them with something different every time.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's essential, whether in combat or in trial, when you're actually in a battle. It's a battle to win and to represent your clients and to get justice. And I remember that case we tried, that when we represented that older gentleman that fell at the hospital here, a local hospital here. And we tried that case, and one of the strategies that we had was that we were not going to take the deposition of their expert, who was well known and famous, and we just decided we were going to ambush him, and we did.
The sun and the moon expert.
Yes, the sun and the we called them the sun and the moon.
We gave him a name.
But
What
yeah,
did he say? What was his theory? That the
Yeah.
sun affected something?
yes,
Sun was out and
Yeah.
the moon was out.
Yeah, the sun and the moon were at the same time, and that's why our client fell.
Yeah.
Not because the stairs were bad.
yes. He tried to basically say that the sun was out, so the poor gentleman could not see the stairs because of the sun. And then brought up something about the moon, and I was like, "But I mean, are you kidding me? Is that what we're talking about? The sun and the moon?" And then we hit him with that in closing, that they brought the sun and moon expert, and
You spent a lot of your career going after the largest corporations in the world, cruise lines, and you've represented a lot of the different people who have been hurt either as passengers or as crew members. One case that really sticks out in my mind that we were able to work on together with was the gentleman who was Indonesian, and the cruise line sent him back to his country and left him there to essentially rot to death. Talk to us about that.
yeah, that was Mr. Titayasa. I'll never forget Mr. Titayasa, and we actually became friends, and we continue to be friends to this day. All of us, we love Mr. Titayasa, but he was a really nice gentleman who worked aboard one of the cruise ships here for one of the companies, and he injured his back during while working, and they sent him home, but they failed to provide his medical care. He needed back surgery. So he sent them a bunch of emails, and each email just got worse and worse and worse. Like, I'm in pain, I need help. Next, then, other emails, I need surgery and I can't pay for it. Then other emails, I'm having to sell my house to pay for the surgery. Then, and finally, I sold my house. I got the surgery. And it turns out that he did get the surgery. It cost him like $5,000. He actually sold his house for like $5,000 to get the surgery. And when we brought him here and we had him seen by one of our top orthopedic surgeons here in town, and he did the CT scan and the MRI, we learned that they had actually wired his back. So they did a surgery where they actually used wires inside his body to try to create like a fusion type surgery on this poor young man. So he had to undergo it.
And it was broken.
And he was, yes, and he was broken.
Chicken wire.
He was like chicken wire, yes. And the doctor, who went to obviously a very good school and had many years of experience, had never seen anything like that. So he had to open him up from L1 all the way down to L5S1 and really try to carefully remove the chicken wires basically that he had in his spine.
And then so a few years after the case was closed, you and I went to his house in Bali, in Indonesia, and he had a whole entire area dedicated to you and the work that you did, a prayer area where he prayed for you and for his doctors and for all of our teams for helping him out. How did that make you feel?
It was amazing. I mean, he was just a gentleman and had a big heart, and it was one of his ways to say thank you. He was just so grateful, and he did very well because of what we were able to do for him.
Not only fixed his back, but financially took care of him and his family.
Absolutely, absolutely. He was able to take that money and put it to work and be able to provide for his family, and I think started a business and was doing very well when we went to see him.
So I was lucky enough to try the first case for your firm with you, and you remember how we met?
Yes.
Tell us that.
So I finished arguing a case on motion calendar, and I was waiting for the elevator, and you approached me, introduced yourself to me, and said something like, that was good stuff in there, and I really liked it, and I would love to learn maritime, and I'm always out on the, in the ocean, and I like boating and fishing and diving, and there was a beautiful energy about you, and just a sincerity in your eyes. And I said to myself, this is a really, really, really interesting individual. And I told you on the spot, maybe we should get together, we should have lunch, and we should get to know each other a little better and maybe try some maritime cases together. And you agreed to do that, and we ended up having lunch a couple of times, and then ended up, without realizing it, we were neighbors and running into each other, working out.
Well, you weren't really a boater at the time, but we encouraged you to come with us on some trips. And one of the best, funniest memories I have of you is when we were all in Panama fishing. Do you remember what happened to you?
Yes. So, I grew up under the sun, and I never wore any protection. I mean, I used to ride my bike through Miami without a shirt on when I was in high school. Used to play basketball for hours under the sun, and they didn't even wear a hat or sunglasses or anything. So we're on this trip, and we're supposed to be out there deep sea fishing for a whole week, and obviously you guys were concerned about me. So, after the second day, they're like, you need to put something to protect yourself. You need to, wear sunscreen and this and that. And, I didn't want to do it because I wasn't used to that.
And you wanted to get your base.
I wanted to get my base, is what I told you guys. Yeah.
Even out
wanted to get a little
first day you wore the hat, second day no hat.
Yeah, I'm like there on the back,
Yeah.
But
day 3 wasn't so pretty.
Finally, you guys talked me into doing it, and I did it. And I remember in the morning, I get up and I sit on the toilet. And I lean forward like this, and as I lean forward, I felt like my whole face, just was just leaning forward too. I had never had that sensation before. So I said to myself, "What the hell is going on here?" And I get up and I look at myself in the mirror, and I was like a monster. I had blown up, my face had blown up. It was all swollen and stuff. So I come out and I'm like, Judd, Brett, look what happened to me, And Brett is like, oh my God. And Mike Simpson is like, oh my God. And then this one here, Judd is like, oh, you're fine. Let's go. I'm like, I ain't going nowhere. I'm done with this, I need a doctor. Meanwhile, we're in the middle of nowhere, So they took me to the witch doctor on a canoe,
And
it was crazy.
You're so respectful. You didn't want to disrespect because so you had to do whatever the witch doctor told you to do.
Yes. So they take me on a canoe to this house in the middle of nowhere, in this little island. And so I walk into this lady's house and she looks at me and she's like, what am I supposed to do with this, And I was like, I don't know. But so she goes, here, put on this cream. So she gives me a cream that had this thing that I was allergic to, which is why I blew up to begin with, So I put it on, and the minute I put it on, I'm like, ah! So I had to run outside to the side of the house and find the water and start splashing my face with the water. And I was like, I couldn't wait to get back to Miami. It was horrible. They almost killed me.
Well, we're glad you survived. We got a lot more stories we're going to bring you back to share with everybody. So thanks for coming through, Peter.
This was awesome, man.
It's a pleasure.
Appreciate it.
It's really a pleasure. And it's been a pleasure knowing you guys for all these years and becoming a part of your family. And, you guys are like my brothers.
And the work that you do as a trial lawyer, helping out everybody all over the world. Your clients have been all over the world. You're a legend in Indonesia and Europe and Asia. I mean, India, they know you everywhere. So we're glad that we got you right here in Miami.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's my pleasure. The slogan for my firm is because we care, and we do care. And I know you guys care too. And that's why we do what we do.
Love you, bro.
Thank you.
All right.